I've been having real difficulty in finding peat-free compost recently. Being an island, we generally have shortages or lack of products in general, but recently people have been cottoning on to the fact that a lot of the compost that we buy in garden centers and supermarkets is really not environmentally friendly. Anything that has peat in it is essentially taking, or rather raping, that peat out of the ground, basically contributing towards CO2 emissions, ruining the land, and it's completely unnecessary. So peat-free in Britain is going to be the only compost that we're going to have from 2024 onwards, I believe. But I think the rest of the world is still a little bit unaware of how bad peat is. I asked on my Instagram about peat-free and if people are having difficulty, and a lot of people can't even find it. And these are places like the United States, places that should know better. Also places like the Netherlands. I mean, come on. Anyway, I managed to find some peat-free compost at a friend's nursery here. She has got loads. So I went over a couple days ago and I stocked up. I got 10 bags. So that should keep me in compost for a while. And so I am continuing to seed sow. And I know that a lot of gardeners will put their plants out, so they'll have potatoes and chilies and corn and whatnot. They'll plant it all out and then just let it go. And then that's it for gardening for the year, food gardening. But if you continue to seed sow, you can have continuous supplies of things like salad greens and different types of herbs. And that's what I'm doing with this little wooden crate today, as I'm going to be sowing some coriander seeds, cilantro. And leafy greens do really well here on the island, and I will also be sowing some beetroot. But if you have really warm summers, beetroot is done. You have that as a spring crop or as an autumn crop. So getting to know your own climate and what does well and what you can grow at certain times of the year is really important, especially when you're watching YouTube channels from people around the world and seeing what people are doing on social media. You can really set yourself up to fail if you follow what other people are doing rather than knowing your garden. You can grow food in practically any container, and as I've mentioned before, I'm growing a lot of things in containers in the home garden this year while I'm thinking about what to do with the lawn. More on that later. But first of all, this is just a wooden crate, the type that you would get oranges in or the little mandarins. And someone brought this to the seed swap the other weekend and had it filled with seedlings. And I took it home. And although the wood isn't very sturdy, adding this liner, so this is an old piece of compost bag, inside will help to retain water and will protect the wood long enough to get a few crops out of it. And all I've done now is I've filled it with the peat-free organic compost that I got from my friend Jill and firmed it down, and I will be sowing some seeds now. Coriander, oh my gosh. When I first moved to Europe, I looked everywhere for cilantro, and I was living in Germany at the time. No one knew what cilantro was because the English word for cilantro is coriander, the entire plant, both the seeds and the leaf. And I guess cilantro is the Spanish word, which Americans have adopted into American English. So coriander, if you ever see that, all that really means, especially in British context, is cilantro. I saved this seed 2 years ago. It'll still be good. And I'm just going to make little holes in the compost now. I'm going to space them out maybe 1.5 inches apart and just pop a seed in each. And I think I'm going to continue growing this on in the greenhouse because it offers protection and a bit of extra warmth and will help speed up germination. But once it gets going, I might pop it outside depending on how much space I need in here. And that is a hot topic this week because although my greenhouse is much larger than my old one, I'm running out of space. Look at all of these seedlings in here right now. And not only that, I have about a gazillion tomatoes. And here on the Isle of Man, we can't really grow tomatoes successfully outdoors. First of all, the weather just isn't warm enough. And second of all, we suffer from blight, potato blight, and it affects tomatoes as well. What that means is that usually later in the summer, just as the fruits are coming on, your plants will be affected, the fruits will go rotten, and it will be the biggest disappointment. And I know because it's happened to me and many other people before. So we tend to grow our tomatoes indoors here, at least in northern Britain. I think people in the south are a little bit luckier on that regards. So I need to clear out the greenhouse. I've got to make space for some larger planters. Usually I grow 4 or 5 tomato plants. This year I'm going to be definitely doubling that. And I've got quite a few varieties. It's still pretty early, but the weather is amazing and I can hear lots of people out on their motorbikes. The Isle of Man is a motorbike island and people cruise around every chance they get. Okay. Let's go through what is growing in the greenhouse right now, and we'll start with these down here. We've got 3 different types of tomatoes. Ailsa Craig right here in the front, good salad tomato. In the back, there's Tigerella. I've grown it before. It's a striped type of tomato, and I can see there's some flowers starting to form, and I'm just gonna pick those off because I would really like the plant to concentrate on growing. We also have back here a sunrise. I've not grown it before, I don't think, but I believe it's very similar to sun gold in that it's a sweet yellow cherry type tomato. And this here is a pepper, obviously, but the variety, I have no idea. It was a plant at the seed swap, and it could be anything from a sweet pepper to something a bit more spicy, and only time will tell. There's a lot more to go. Let's go check out what's over here. We've got 2 more Ailsa Craig tomatoes here, and we've got all different types of things crammed in between. These are the Egyptian walking onions that I have at the allotment, and I want to plant them out here in the home garden, but they'll stay in this tray for a little bit longer. We've got San Marzano tomatoes, and these are large plum type. There's some Gardener's Delight back there. This one here, this is a new type. I've never grown that one before. It's called Sugar Drop, and I don't know much about it. So as you can see, there's lots of tomatoes and not very much space in here. So what I'll be doing for the next video is doing some adjustments in here and getting some planters in to grow my tomatoes. A lot of these plants are destined for the allotment garden, and I'm going to be doing a big planting out video soon, and everything is just catching up. I was feeling so behind with the house move, but there's so much to go out. The dahlias, there's an entire corner of dahlias back here. Those are going out to the allotment. This is a new type of vegetable for me. It's called mashua. It's a root vegetable from South America. This is how it's spelled. And again, a friend gave me some tubers and I popped them in, and as you can see, they're a climber. And they're also, I believe, related to nasturtiums, which you can probably tell from the foliage. While there is a lot growing in the greenhouse, there's also a lot growing around the patio area here. I'm keeping on top of watering. This time of the year, you really do need to water your container plants every day. And that's why a lot of people will get drip lines or drip hoses and have them installed, because it just takes the work out of it. I don't have those, so I'm going in the evening watering everything. And that's why everything is so lush and green and growing. And let's have a look to see what I have growing here on the patio. Much of what I'm growing in the greenhouse is getting to a good size. I'm going to be hardening it off and then planting it outside in the allotments. but things that are in larger pots around the house, this is where they live. And I have all different types of delicious and beautiful things, including lots of different types of mint. And growing herbs and flavors near your kitchen means that you're going to be able to use them a lot more conveniently than if they're growing a walk or a drive away from the house. And there are things here like sage and thyme. Thyme really struggles to survive the winters in my garden. So having them in containers like this, putting them in the greenhouse over the winter really helps them to survive. Now down here, we've got the remaining Red Duke of York. This is the earthed up potato, doing really well. We've got dwarf or miniature raspberries, and I showed this to you in last week's video, which focused on the veggie pod. And when I was watering last night, I spotted seedlings. It's been about a week, and of course, the brassica seedlings in this mixed spicy greens mix are coming up. This is red salad bowl lettuce, and there are some radish seedlings as well. So it's all going very well. This will be absolutely heaving with greens and radishes in no time. I wonder how many plants are growing here. I have no idea. I have no idea how many pots I even own. But this is what I'm focusing on. All of this back here, the allotment garden obviously, which we will come back to very soon, and then also the home garden. We are planning on being here for the summer, just watching, keeping the grass cut, focusing on the plants back here, and then also tackling smaller projects. When you are designing a garden or designing anything, it really helps to have a big picture. What do you want? And that picture of what I envision for the growing spaces is starting to form in my mind. And knowing that basic kind of outline and the different areas is really helping to guide the next steps, which are some of the projects that will help to build that bigger picture. So having a big focus, a big vision of the plan, and then breaking it down into smaller bite-sized chunks is really what helps me to get anything done, but particularly the garden. I've spent most of my time gardening in the greenhouse and the container garden back here behind the house. But as you know from previous videos, I have been doing a lot of cleaning, including lots of pressure washing. So this patio is the first thing that I pressure washed. And I cleaned out the shed over there. That is going to be a project that's going to be coming up soon. Well, sometime during the summer, getting that all ready and sorted in time for winter. Josh sanded our patio table, so I will be repainting that later on. And back here is this really grassy bank. This is going to be the first project that I'll be working on, and it's such a big project that I've enlisted the help of a friend who has a gardening company here on the island, and he and his team are coming tomorrow to help me clear this area. It's a lot of grass. There are some plants in there that I do want to save. There's an Aquilegia there that's gorgeous, a really dark purple one, some shrubs. But for the most part, most of this is going to be coming out. We want to see what's under the grass as well, because there's likely to be a lot of wood and rubbish. We're going to pull out all those nettles. And then once this is all trimmed, we are going to cover this in heavy duty black polythene plastic. And what that's going to do, once pinned down, is it's going to exclude light, it's going to solarize the plants underneath, and in a few months' time, when I lift it up, this is just going to be pretty much soil and probably a lot of rubbish that will need to be picked out. And at that point, I will be peeling it back bit by bit and starting to plant it up. And I will do an entire video on renovating and replanting this bank, probably later in the summer. I've just followed Maggie down into the garden. She's just sitting there, strolling around her territory. Obviously, we still have a lot of grass here, and you can see there's quite heavy shade in various parts of the garden here in the morning. That all fills in. We get lots of sun starting from about noon. This is just completely in sun because it is south-facing. But I wanted to show you something over here that I just discovered yesterday. This is a plum. It's a Victoria plum. And as you can see, the fruits look very strange, don't they? I had to look this up, and I found out that this tree is infected with a fungal disease called plum pocket, and it proliferates from year to year. And the only way to cure this tree would be to remove manually all of the fruit, incinerate them, and then twice a year treat this tree with a type of fungicide. Otherwise, the fungus that is causing the fruit to become elongated, and if you open this inside, there's no pit inside either, that fungus will just survive, and it will go into the bark of the tree and survive the winter and come back the next spring. So this is something I need to tackle this year, and oh my gosh, look at how tall it is. So that is the state of the home garden now in early June, and it's only been about 7 weeks since we moved in, and we've got a lot done in that time. Lots of clearing, lots of cutting back, getting to know the property, which is so important. So knowing where things are growing already, where light falls, the shady parts, the areas that might need some digging out. All of these things are really important before deciding where plants are going to go, especially perennial plants, because once you get them in the ground, it is a mission sometimes to get them up and out of the ground, as I found out with the David Austin roses when we moved. So on the agenda next is working on the bank in the back, and that's going to start from tomorrow. And then also I will be renovating the shed. And the first step in that is going to be busting out the floor, which is rotten, and building a new one. And lumber has not been very inexpensive recently, so I will be shopping around and seeing what I can do as far as timber. Thank you so much for watching. If you are watching and you haven't subscribed already, definitely hit that subscribe button. And I will see you next week for another video here on Lovely Greens. Bye for now.